Just a quick note before I get in with the rest of the discussion, which I've already recorded. I go off on a bit of a rant about the appearance of Tramp in this and how I didn't really think it worked very well, and I explain that more in a little bit. But after recording that, I watched some clips back, and I realised that my thoughts are mostly for when Tramp is sitting down. When he sits down, he kind of fills out a little bit and he looks a little healthier. But when he's up and about and running, yeah, he does look maybe a little bit closer to what I would have expected him to look like. So that's just to bear in mind that when I do start to talk about Tramp or Tramp's appearance, I'm mostly referring to when he's sitting down and he's filled out a bit, not so much when he's running around, which I do think maybe looks a little bit more in keeping with what I would have expected. Okay, now on to the bit that I've already recorded. This was released, of course, in 2019. It's directed by Charlie Bean. It's written by Andrew Bojalski and Kerry Grenland. And we have a cast including Thomas Mann as Jim Deere and Kiersey Clemons as Darling. We also have Yvette Nicole Brown. We have a voice cast with Tessa Thompson as Lady, Justin Theroux as Tramp. And in terms of being similar to the animation story, absolutely all of the recognisable elements are there. It's about a Cocker Spaniel called Lady who lives with her family, and all of a sudden something suspicious starts to happen. It seems like there might be a new addition to the family, and Lady, because of various reasons, feels like she's being pushed out. So, being pushed by the new arrival, and also being pulled by the character of Tramp, who is a Schnauzer mix who lives on the streets, and Lady ends up going off on this potentially dangerous, scary adventure with Tramp. And I don't want to say too much more than that, but the basic elements are all there, including the spaghetti scene. That's not a spoiler because it's on the promotional material. As soon as I saw that, I thought, okay, so they're going to be providing people with recognisable elements. And I don't know if I think that's a good thing or a bad thing. And what I mean by that is, what is the purpose of a live-action remake for Disney? Are they trying to present the familiar stories in a way that's recognisable, but just with live-action and CGI elements? Or are they trying to create something fresh and different? And I guess the real answer there is they're trying to do a bit of both. They're trying to make it a little bit different, but with also recognisable elements. And that's certainly the case here. But when I said I don't know if it was worth the wait, this is because I don't know whether I want to judge it as a fan of Lady and the Tramp, the animation, or as somebody who's perhaps never seen it. And I guess what I mean by that is that if you've never ever seen the animated Lady and the Tramp, this is actually probably a really great film. It's a great story, very well executed. The characters are very well written, very likeable. The voice acting is great. The regular acting is great. We have some gorgeous locations and set designs. The music's pretty good. I'll come back to the music in a moment. So really, if you've never seen the animated version, this could be a really fantastic experience. And I think it's very, very well done. And I guess that's the most important thing. But then it begs the question, is Disney making the live action to introduce these stories to the youngest generations? Even though I'd argue, especially with Disney Plus, the younger generations are still watching the classics, thankfully. Or are they creating these for us older Disney fans who have grown up with the classics and want to maybe explore the stories in a slightly new way? And again, it's probably a bit of both. But as a fan of the animated film, I have to say there were things about this that I didn't love as much. And obviously it's not possible for me to fully watch this film completely detaching it from the animation. Because let's be honest, it is very, very heavily influenced by that source material, which I think it should be. And the things that I didn't like, and one of them's kind of a big deal, I didn't like the lack of... I feel like some of the music's not as good. Not all of it, and again, I'll come back to the music in a second, but I didn't feel like the soundtrack was quite as memorable. But that being said, Lady and the Tramp, the animation, doesn't have the most memorable Disney soundtrack anyway, so I guess that's not a big deal. I did wonder, and for some reason I'd completely missed this spoiler for the last half a decade, but I did wonder what they'd do with the cats, because Sai and Dam are definitely very stereotyped, and I did wonder, are they going to have the "We Are Siamese If You Please" song? And I can now answer that. So I guess this is a teeny tiny spoiler in case you don't want to know, but what they did instead, and I don't have a problem with that, they actually made the cats two beautiful, absolutely gorgeous Devon Rex cats. They are so, so stunning. So honestly, I don't mind that they went, look, this is probably not an acceptable interpretation. It's a little bit racist, to be quite frank. Let's not go with that, but let's still keep the cats in. Fine, I'm okay with that. But We Are Siamese is a very memorable song, and obviously that's one of the elements that's missing. So I don't have a problem with that not being in this, but it does mean that I'm watching it going, well, I'm obviously going to compare this directly to the animation. Do I feel differently? Well, the cats are not as memorable. Certainly. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know, but it's just something that I thought was worth mentioning. And the other reason, the really big reason I don't like it as much, is because of Tramp. I don't like Tramp. I love the character. I don't like the appearance. I don't think this is going to sound strange, but I don't think he looks thin enough. He doesn't look scrawny enough. He doesn't look like a dog who's begging for scraps and having to eat the scraps outside of an Italian restaurant. Yeah, maybe he looks a little bit scruffy. He could do with a good trip to the groomers, but beyond that, he looks a little bit well fed and a little bit healthier. And I'm not saying he should be skin and bones to the point where I'd cry all of the way through. There are some emotional moments. The puppy dog's whimpering and begging. I can't deal with that. It definitely is a lot more emotional than the animated film, but the appearance of Tramp doesn't work. I feel like there's a middle ground between terrifyingly emaciated and actually looking well fed, and I don't think he looks like Tramp. I don't think they've done a good job. Whereas Lady, she looks good. It's worth pointing out they used real dogs. So I'm glad the dog looks healthy. I guess that is a good thing. But if they're making changes with CGI, then they absolutely could have made a little bit of a change to his appearance. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but when I first saw him moving and walking around, I just thought, you look a little too well loved for being a dog on the street. So I didn't love that, and it just didn't feel like Tramp to me. I don't think he looks right in terms of his colouring either. This is obviously me comparing it to the experience of the animated film, but if you showed me randomly a picture of that dog completely out of context and said, who does this remind you of? I never ever would have said Tramp. Whereas if you showed me a picture of Lady in the live action remake, I think there's a very, very, very good chance I would have said, well, that looks like Lady. So don't love Tramp, but love the character. And the music I was going to mention as well. This is one thing that I thought was done very, very well. And this is the rendition of He's a Tramp, sung by Peg. And Peg is actually voiced by Peggy Lee in the animated film. And I have to say, Janelle Monáe, who voices or provides the vocal performance here for Peg, did a really fantastic job. And the cover there for this song is just absolutely stunning. So after whinging about the appearance of Tramp for a while, I'll flip it back around and say He's a Tramp was beautifully sung. And honestly, for me, probably one of the highlights in the film, because it was the new footage of the live action remake, but with a very strong element from the animation. And I think it combined the two very, very well. Did I enjoy it? Yes, I think I did. I would say that Lady and the Tramp, the live action remake, is not a bad film. I don't know why it took me this long to watch it. If you've seen the animated version, if you're very fond of the animated version, you may not love it all, but I think you'll still enjoy the overarching narrative, certain elements such as Peg singing He's a Tramp, and in general, I'd say it's a good film. I don't love the appearance of Tramp. I think apart from having a scruffy coat, he just looks a little too well loved, which again, it's a real dog, so that's not necessarily a bad thing. I just think he doesn't look right, and I don't think it worked very well. But Lady looks rather amazing. And everything else works very well. If you've never seen the animated version, then I think you'll find it to be actually a really delightful film. And if you have seen the animated version and you're fond of it, I think you'll still like it. But at the end of the day, if I were to choose a favourite, yeah, I'm still going to go with the animated version. But all that being said, Lady and the Tramp is still a pretty decent film, and I think it's probably worth the half a decade wait I'm glad I finally got round to watching it.